Welcome to our final module of our learning session, Systemic Discrimination, What We Can Do. Getting started. If you haven't watched modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, we encourage you to do so. Module 1 provides an introduction to our office, offers an overview of the entire session, and explains how to use the different components of this web-based learning session. Module 2 reviews the characteristics of systemic discrimination and considers the importance of taking action. Module 3 provides tools to identify an example of systemic discrimination. And Module 4 considers potential actions to address systemic discrimination in your settings. As with the previous modules, we'll ask you to pause and reflect during this module. So consider having a pen and paper available to write down your thoughts if you find that helpful. Okay, let's take a look at the session goals from previous modules. In Module 2, we reviewed the key characteristics and impacts of systemic discrimination, and we considered reasons for taking action to address it. In Module 3, we reflected on examples of systemic discrimination. And in Module 4, we became familiar with potential actions for your settings, both in your organization and in daily life. In this final module, we will consider and identify some resources to support next steps.
Taking action at any level often involves initiating and engaging in challenging conversations. Identifying systemic discrimination within any setting is often met with resistance. It can be difficult to acknowledge that we may be unaware of systemic discrimination and may be contributing to it and maybe even benefiting from it. Identifying and using effective strategies can help reduce this resistance. Take a minute to identify a strategy that you've seen or used to initiate or engage in a challenging conversation. Was it successful? Why? Or why not? BC's Office of the Human Rights Commissioner developed the following list of strategies, and they may be useful to you when initiating challenging conversations when taking action on systemic discrimination. They can also be used to bring up other issues, such as interpersonal discrimination. This list is available in your handout. The following strategies may be effective. Recruit allies. Initiating and engaging in challenging conversations can be emotionally demanding. Consider expanding the group of people willing to support you in these conversations. Identify shared goals and values. Highlighting how any proposed changes will help meet everyone's goals, including the goals of the organization, can increase support for those changes. Highlight shared negative impacts of the issue. Seeing how the issues impact the organization or community as a whole may help people to understand why it's important to acknowledge and address them. Share real-life stories and data. Decision makers may respond better to one or the other of two different approaches for communicating the impacts of systemic discrimination. Some people are more influenced by strategies to build empathy through storytelling, where specific examples from lived experience are shared to help people better understand the depth of the impact of the issue. Other people are more influenced by supporting data about the impacts of systemic discrimination. And using both approaches will increase your chances of success. Be curious about alternative perspectives. Be open to understanding the reasons why harmful policies or practice are in place. It may help increase the openness of others involved to consider your concerns. And it may also result in shifting your own understanding. Clarify desired outcomes. Clearly describe changes you'd like to see and why they're important to you and to your shared goals and values. Decision makers may be more open to considering changes if they're clearly explained. Offer to be part of the solution. Consider offering to support putting the requested changes in place. It may encourage others to consider these changes if their role is lessened. And finally, be responsive to reactions. You may notice signs of resistance or disengagement. Acknowledge what you notice and ask participants what they need for this conversation to work. Consider stepping back, changing your approach, or postponing the conversation. Strategies we've just discussed can help with initiating challenging conversations. And you can consider avoiding the following strategies, which may be less effective. Avoid blaming individuals and not the system. If a person or group feels personally responsible for an issue, they may shut down and disengage. Focus on the issue and not the people responsible for it. Avoid information overload. People may lose interest if presented with a long monologue with no opportunity to contribute or ask questions. Keep your comments brief and encourage others to share their thoughts. Avoid speaking on behalf of someone without permission. You may share stories from people in your community who have been impacted, but it's very important to have their permission before speaking on their behalf. Finally, avoid setting unmanageable expectations. Change involves humility and self-reflection, and change in awareness and actions may not occur immediately. Consider requesting follow-up meetings if after several weeks you have seen no progress. Let's take a minute to reflect on which of these strategies might work for you. Which of the following strategies might help you to initiate and engage in challenging conversations? Would you choose to recruit allies, identify shared goals and values, highlight negative impacts, share real-life stories and data, be curious about alternative perspectives, clarify desired outcomes, offer to be part of the solution, and be responsive to reactions? Which of the following will you try and avoid doing in the future when initiating and engaging in challenging conversations? Select all that apply. Blaming individuals, information overload, speaking on behalf of someone without permission, setting unmanageable expectations, or none at this time. Consider doing this activity sometime soon to practice using strategies on the previous slides. Think about a challenging topic related to systemic discrimination that you would like to bring up within your organization or community. Identify one strategy to use and one to avoid, and then practice using these strategies with a partner. Take turns playing the role of the person trying to initiate the conversation and the person who is reluctant to engage.
This session takeaway resource was developed to support reflection on all 5 modules. We began by sharing tools to help identify issues to take action on by answering the following questions. Is the issue an example of systemic discrimination? And why is it important to take action? Next, we considered different scales and levels of action to help determine which type of action you may wish to take. We looked at individual, localized, and broad-scale actions, and we considered levels of action, including personal, awareness raising, advocacy, policy change, and legal actions. Then we considered components of successful actions. These included addressing root causes, centering the voices of groups impacted, working towards systemic change, and setting flexible timelines and outcomes. We also highlighted the importance of identifying potential barriers to actions and considering solutions to overcome these barriers. These included barriers related to skills, capacity, level of influence, and risks. Finally, we shared resources to support next steps, including examples of successful actions at each level and strategies to initiate and engage in challenging conversation. After this session, consider taking a few minutes to reflect on your takeaways and to record them in this resource in the handouts package. This page appears as a fillable form.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our Systemic Discrimination, What We Can Do learning session. Let's take a minute to review the learning goals from all 5 modules and to reflect on which goals you have met. Our goals included to review the key characteristics and impacts of systemic discrimination, consider reasons for taking action, reflect on examples of systemic discrimination in your organization or community that you would like to see addressed, become familiar with potential actions to address issues in your organization or community, and to consider and identify resources for next steps. On the next slide, we'll provide some reflection questions that should help you to determine how well we succeeded in meeting these goals. Take a minute to reflect on your answers to the questions and compare with your responses when we ask you these same questions in Module 1. Consider, have your answers changed since participating in this learning session? The first question, how interested are you in taking action to address systemic discrimination? Rate from 1 to 5, with 1 not at all interested and 5 extremely interested. Our second question is, can you identify examples of systemic discrimination in your community or organization that you would like to see addressed? Yes, no, or are you not sure? And finally, are you aware of actions that could be taken to address systemic discrimination in your community or organization? You can answer yes, no, or not sure. Or you can jot down some of the actions that you're aware of. We hope that we have been successful in increasing your interest in taking action and identifying strategies to address specific examples of systemic discrimination that are important to you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to participate in our Systemic Discrimination, What We Can Do learning session. Your feedback is very important to us. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to a survey, and we encourage you to take a few minutes to complete it. Your feedback provides us with very useful information that helps us to develop learning resources that meet your needs. Thank you for participating in our web-based educational session, Systemic Discrimination, What We Can Do. We invite you to download the PDF of the presentation and the handout for Module 5. The handout contains more information on strategies to initiate and engage in challenging conversations, as well as the session takeaways table, a fillable form that can help you plan next steps, and links to BCOHRC learning resources that you may find helpful. I want to acknowledge that the information and examples that we shared in this session may have a variety of impacts on you, both now and in the days to come. I encourage you to take care of your needs and refer to the supports listed in the handout package from Module 1 if helpful.